Hey guys, Jeff from Home Renovision here. Today I'm finishing off, it's day 2 of my project. I'm finishing off my fireplace build. Now listen, this is an amazing opportunity for you. We built this with the recent price increase in mind. So this is here, that's MDF shiplap, okay? Now that is a recycled material and it has not been subject to all the crazy price hikes like wood. So it's the same price as it was 2 years ago. Great deal, very affordable. I'm gonna show you all my tips and tricks so that you can build this yourself at home. All right, save a ton of money. And if you like the idea of YouTubers showing you how to build things that you can actually afford, then hit the thumbs up button. Seems lately there's a lot of people getting sponsored to build really ginormous projects, and that's totally out of everybody's budget. This is within a budget. I'm telling you right now, stick around to the end. We're gonna show you how we complete this entire project. We'll show you before and afters of the 1880s farmhouse that we redid this project in. Cheers. We're gonna work with a cut list today because I'm not gonna have the saw right behind me, all right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to design it and make a cut list and then go and cut it all and then come back down here and build it. It's not that tricky. So that's what we're working with today. So if you're gonna follow this video to make it at your house, realize that everything I'm building here is customized based on the 1880 farmhouse I'm standing in. My walls are crooked, they're slanted, the ceiling isn't level, everything is all over the place. So we're going to come up with an approach to get this done that is very simple and straightforward, but you're gonna have to watch the video and then maybe watch it a second time. I don't know. Let's just get into this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna build a structure for this fireplace that comes up to within 1/2 inch of this edge here, and we're gonna use a shiplap to do the face, okay? So it's just a basic bones. Just a box here, a box on the other side, a couple of horizontal pieces to tie it all together, and then we've got a nailing surface for the shiplap. If you're doing a project like this, there's really 2 kinds of fireplaces. There's the natural gas or propane, same unit, or there's an electric fireplace option. Electric fireplaces generally have a blower across the top of them, okay? So when you're designing it, you wanna consider 18 inches from that blower can't have anything, okay? It's gonna be too hot. And if you're gonna mount a TV on the wall, you gotta use a mantle to deflect that heat away from your TV. You can't just go fireplace TV or you're in a lot of trouble, okay? In this design, I'm gonna show you how to, because we don't wanna make it too big for the room, I'm gonna actually make a recessed box and mount the TV inside the box so that the heat can go straight up in front of it and we're not gonna create an issue for how the TV operates, okay? And you can also leave an extra room in there if you wanna add a sound bar. So we're gonna run the electrical, we're gonna frame it, we're gonna trim it out with our shiplap, we're gonna paint it, and we're gonna get this thing up and running. It only takes about 2 days. And in the front on the floor, we're gonna put in a couple pieces of stone. It's gonna be very basic and very simple. It's not there because of code, it's just there because, well, I ran out of flooring. So, because of that, we are gonna have to use a little bit of stone just to finish off the look, and that's gonna be just fine. Okay, first thing we're doing is we're gonna get our full stud measurements, floor to ceiling. Looks like 95.5. And then we're gonna mark that down on our cut list, okay? Front left, okay, is 95.5. But I'm gonna cut it 95.25, okay? And then take off 3 inches because you're making a box. So it's gonna be 92.25. That way I can make the box, set it in place, shim it, use my laser level, and then drive the screws to make it fix in place. All right, we'll do that for all 4 corners. Because I'm building these 2 boxes, I'm going to need something across right here to hold it all in place and that I can use to receive the other 2 pieces, the verticals. I wanna have a piece of wood here and a piece of wood here on each side of the fireplace. And remember, these units are 0 clearance for combustibles, so it doesn't matter. I'm gonna leave about 1 inch of airspace there, but that should be plenty. In order to keep everything square, I'm just gonna measure the same size as the hole in my flooring, because that's what I'm gonna use as my marker. And then I can install that all level. Now, I've also gotta have, it's kind of like a ladder. I'm gonna put a horizontal piece on each side. I wanna have something that goes inside to inside on the frame, and I need top and bottom plates to the right side. Now the trick here is I'm working with a finished baseboard. I'm not removing it. When we're all finished, I'll show you how to scribe the baseboard and slide it in over top of finish. But because we're just nailing a clad surface, then I'm trimming it out, I don't need the back stud to be attached to the wall. There's no value in attaching it to the drywall because there isn't a stud where I want it. So I'm just gonna go attach it floor and ceiling. So what I wanna do is I wanna measure to that baseboard, my actual measurement, minus 1/2 inch. And then minus another 1/4 because I want to have my finish here just behind this finished edge so that I can have my 1x3 trimming to cap around and raise off the surface of this a little bit. That's my design. 21¼ over here. See what? And that is the right, and that is the left. All right. Now I got my cut list. I'm gonna go cut all of this, and we'll stick it all together with some screws. You can see how I've laid this out. My cut list, everything's marked. So this is one wall, this is the other wall, this is the top rail, and those are the other 2 studs coming down. And even though I'm using 2x3s, I still want to use 2 screws at each end because it'll keep it from twisting any worse than it already is. Now I can just assemble it, stick it in place. So I'm just going to use my square up against the wall, and make sure that this wall is square to this one, because those angles are actually really show up. Especially if you're thinking of using miter joints on the outside of your wood. Make sure that you're nice and square as you go along. We also come across the front of our fireplace. We have 1/2 inch shiplap and 1 extra quarter depth recess. So there we go, 3/4. This is the perfect location. I'm also going to screw down the back plate, and then to mount the top, we're going to pull up the laser level. This top rail is designed based on the size of the hole. The hole's a little inconsistent. So I'm using it to mark my spot, to get the right line here, okay? And to set my 3/4 back. So I'm at the right outside corner, so when this one goes up across the top, it instantly squares everything. All right. Now I'm gonna square this one to the wall. Okay, now I'm just gonna go in from behind, set my screws, and then I have a surface for the other 2 sticks to mount into, okay? We're gonna go up as high as we can up into the ceiling here. Now at this point, I don't know if my verticals are plumb, but I know it's gonna be square if I just plumb one side. So grab the laser level, throw it up that column, make sure it's very nice. And you'll see, now until I put the laser on the other side, you'll see it, it's already level. Perfect every time. Money in the bank. Okay, so the next step was we put the laser level on the bottom corner where it's fixed, right at the very bottom. My mark here. I just gotta pull this out till it's right on that sweet spot. That's level. Okay, and we'll put another mark there. So now no matter what happens, I know that's in the right spot. Again, we want to use the square in the back because that is not in the right spot. You see that? Put that line there. So then when we go to screw that to the ceiling, we'll know exactly where to put this before we drive the screw and create the compression. I'll show you my trick for that in a second. Mark the wall as well. Okay, good. Whenever you're dealing with wood that's a little twisted, you want to put extra marks around, okay? So you always have a reference point of where the square or level position is until you actually put everything under compression. It's going to be just flying everywhere. All right, so now I want to mount the top plates, and then we're almost ready to shiplap. The next thing I want to do is I want to get into the ceiling and put a piece of like 1x3 or something on top of the drywall above where this plate's going to go. And then I can screw it all together, create the compression to hold everything in position. So in order to do that, I need a hole. So if you're going to make a hole and it's going to be inside the box, just make it as big as you need so you can work comfortable. Yeah, we do have strapping up here, Max. Just don't know where it is. You got to be You'd think I designed it. That strapping's right above my mark. I got lucky. This side will be easy. All right, so I've got my marks here now. This is a good time for a good stack of shims against the drywall. So I want to put the thick end of the shim. Try your best to install them so they're not sticking out on this side of the wall up against the ceiling, okay? It's nice to be able to leave a space there. There we go. And we're just gonna do the other side. What are the odds that I get lucky again? I just don't see it, Max. bulletproof drywall. Come on. There, drywall. That is a piece of strapping right here. All right. I gotta be able to get up in there. So I'll try to explain this. We have wood, we have drywall, but I can't put a screw from the wood into the drywall. The drywall won't hold it. So if I put this block directly on top and I drive a screw through it, I can compress them together over top of that drywall, and then it'll keep it from moving around. So that's what we're gonna do here. All right. I can check with my marks, make sure everything is in place before I screw it up. Okay. Now I'll reach in, make sure I put that block on top of that screw head in the middle of the block. Try to keep my fingers out of the way. There we go. Perfect every time. Back to my square mark. Bam. All right. That's not going anywhere. Okay, let's go on. Now before I can set these sticks, I gotta remember I'm making a recessed box. So I need my rough dimension plus the thickness of the finished material, okay, to be considered based on the television that you're installing. So the good news is I have a television that I'm gonna put on here. It's currently sitting in my 3-season room. So I'm gonna go outside and measure that, and then I'm gonna design this space so that the TV is only about 1 inch or so from the edge of the finish wall. And then I've got about 6 inches underneath of it in case you want to have a sound bar or something like that added afterwards. Let's just go double check the measurements. My TV, we're going to call it 36 inches. And plus 6, we'll call it 26. Maybe we'll go as high as 28. 36, 20, well, 36, 28. All right. All right, 36, 28. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure the center mark here, 25 1/4, 36, 26, 36, 26. Okay, now remember what I said because of this beam. If I have a 36-inch hole and I mounted my TV would come to there, okay? And that's too close for the heat. And I don't want my TV up against the bloody ceiling. So that's why we're gonna recess the box, okay? So what I gotta do is off this center mark, if that's my TV size, right? I need to add 1 inch on each side, plus a 1/2 inch for the material to get my rough framing dimension. So I'm 1, 2, I'm 3 inches. So I'll make it 39, okay? So I'm 39 total. Half of that, 15, and 4 1/2 is 19 1/2. And there's my measurement there. Okay, so there we go. And I'm gonna go from there to 39, and that'll keep everything nice and centered. Okay. Perfect. That one's done, and there. Now we can just put a level on those to find their position on the floor, mark it, throw in a screw, and now I have 2 nailing surface for every cut piece of board down each side, and I've got the width of my box frame determined. Piece of cake, right? Now, the same way I did with the top rail, I'm gonna go from outside to outside of the frame, in behind all this lumber, and that'll help keep my vertical surface flush as it's coming down. And then I'm gonna put a piece in here that's 39, which is the same as my gap on the top, just to help set everything square and level. I want to make sure I've got a nailing surface where my box starts, right here, and I want to make sure that I've got something behind this that I can set my base of the box, my trim work on. We're only using 1x5 as far as the depth is concerned, so as long as I've got a nailing surface, I should be fine. And that'll help carry all the weight. So we've got the outside of our box determined, everything is fixed. Now for the inside of the box, we've got our center mark, we've got our verticals. We just need to determine where we want the shelf to go, okay? So what you really want to think is TV. So you want to maybe consider the same gap at the top underneath this beam as from here to here, but you also want to consider viewing pleasure in the living room, okay? And I am 10 feet away. Middle of my TV should be pretty much where your eyes are when you're standing in front of it. So I've got a eye level here, okay? I'm gonna measure, see how I'm doing. I've got about 50 inches to the top of the fireplace. So I'm gonna make the middle of my box at 25, okay? So this will become my center line on the vertical, and it was 26. So we'll put the 13 here and the 26 here. So there's my marks, right? Brilliant. All we have to do, transfer that line across with the laser level, because we can't actually measure from the floor or the ceiling around here because things aren't level. Gotta love it dealing with old houses, man. So we just use the laser line so we can transfer our horizontal line. This is awesome. We're also going to use, because I know the fireplace is level, could have measured up from the fireplace, but it's not really going to be working all well on an angle. When in doubt, use the laser level to figure it out. All right, you can never go wrong. This will never lie to you. So now I've got this mark. I've got to do the same thing, 13 and 26, right? Let's get that off before I go any more blind. Here we go. 13 and 26. Okay, now I've got this board. We're going to need a nailing surface on the fireplace, and that's what these little clamps are for here, all right? So you can rest your framing on it. Right now this laser level is at the same height as that line. So it's drawing that line on all three of these studs, no matter where they are. And so I can actually mark, okay, for my cross brace here. And I can mount each side that way, and then put one full stick of lumber across to carry the load of the TV. Okay. Awkward. The reason this is so challenging is because my floors are trees and they're all very warped. So what I've got to do is make sure that since I'm installing horizontal lap board basically with shiplap, that all of my framing is perfectly level so that it all finishes up looking intentional and level. Without a laser level, you never get that done. I think I've changed my mind. I'm trying to create the perfectly centered and balanced hole in a shiplap wall, but it's a lot like tile. So what I'm going to do is, instead of building a box and then having the shiplap be cut around it, I want to try to have this line interrupt the shiplap on the joint line. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some pieces for the bottom. I'm going to dry fit them to see where they finish up here, make the adjustment, and then I'm going to adjust whatever my height is on this based on where the shiplap joint is. Whether it's down a quarter or up 1.5, doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. I think aesthetically, the most important thing here is that a horizontal line represents the break in the hole, okay? So let's do it the old-fashioned way. Let's pretend it's a tile job. We're tiling a shower wall and around a niche, and we got to make sure the niche is on the grout line. What I did is I put this on here, okay, just as a reference. I measure up and I measure down. And what I'm looking for is, after dry fitting the floor, I know that the piece plus the gap is 5.25. And so when I measure that out, I end up, if I want to start with a full piece on the fireplace, I end up with half a piece at the floor and half a piece at the ceiling. Generally speaking, you want to start and finish with full pieces as possible. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to just measure down from these corners, okay, and adjust the bottom row so that we start with a full piece and leave a gap at the bottom that we can trim out after the fact. Because we are trimming the corners, we're trimming around the fireplace, we're trimming around the TV, around the ceiling. It'll look very natural for us to have the trim boards coming across the bottom as well. So this board will end up being notched out and recessed wherever it comes into play. Then what we'll do is we'll take the next board, wherever that ends up, and that is where we're gonna set the TV shelf, okay? So that it looks very intentional. So, here's my spot. I'm gonna measure down, make a couple of lines, and then I'm gonna start installing the shiplap on the face. We'll get this cut, then we'll build the TV wall, and we're just gonna build it as we go up the wall, okay? And then we'll cut all the rest of the sides in afterwards. And that is right here. I put my mark for my measurement to be the same as the other side. Threw a screw in that line, so now I have a stop. Now I'm gonna use my level to identify where I'm gonna put my nail. As long as this is perfectly level, we will have a horizontal connection at the top. That is perfect. Wow, now the rest of this is easy. You want to make sure when you're doing shiplap, you're nailing through the top of the edge here so that the next board covers your nail hole. Don't go on an angle in the joint because it'll be visible forever. Remember, this is MDF. And the surface always explodes a little bit towards where the nail came in. So having that not visible is the key to a successful finish. Everybody's watching to see if I put a brad nail on my finger. Not gonna happen, kids. But if it does, I do have my electrical tape handy. I'll be just fine. Whoop. Oh, my. Okay. That brings up another note. This is MDF. This is 80% recycled. Okay, so it's very constant pricing. It's very affordable right now. And it's also very delicate, which is why I'm trimming all the corners. You might want to consider doing an outside miter. You can be as fancy as you want, but the reality is a mitered MDF outside corner, all it takes is one bump and the surface is going to peel right off. So always best to trim out all of your outside corners and your joints and functionality issues so that you don't have that, wear and tear effect, like just weeks after you finish your project. Next step is to mark my trim out. Trim it out there. That one is 2 3/8. We're just gonna cut all this at the same. I'll do a scribe cut here. Using a little muscle memory. Let's throw that on the table, so I'll be right back. Perfect every time. Well, with our current design, it takes us here. To me, it just says really nice. I'm a little higher, a little lower than I was originally planning on, but this is the right neighborhood. I'm just gonna take off the side brackets, drop them down a little bit, build my back wall, and then we'll keep on trimming this out. Now, before we go any further though, I still need to have access in behind, and I've got to drill a hole and bring my power feed through because the TV needs power. So we're gonna get that wall in here, bring up the 14-2 wire, and when you're attaching that, you can go direct to the panel, or you can go and attach to another plug circuit in your basement or somewhere else. It's not a big deal. Black to black, white to white, make it continuous power, and you can wire up your plug. We've got videos on both of these options, okay? So check out the video description. You can find out how to wire to the panel, or you can find out how to just run a circuit. All right, so now I'm using the same shiplap, which I'm gonna use as my spacer here, and then trim it out. I'm just using it as a spacer to set my back wall. All right, I think we got this figured out. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a couple more of these cross member boards. We're gonna go on top of the frame here so we can level the back wall off and have it tied in nice and strong. That'll support the weight if we do it on both sides. This board I installed flush with the same as this surface so that my picture framing inside of this will sit on top of it. We'll add our trims on top of it after that, and then we'll have a nice finished look. Next thing I gotta do is stick on an electrical box. You get what you can get during COVID, right? The stores aren't open. It's a pain in the butt, but that's fine. And we wanna have it mounted near the top, okay? There we go. So we do this the same way we tile a bathroom. We would actually lay a line, draw a line, so we know where the grout line is. In this case, it's a shiplap joint, but we use the laser level to set this board, okay? We attach it, use a little adhesive. This has got a lot of wood in it. These nail lines here are actually designed for no matter where you put that bracket. You can see these nail holes and know that the structure is there to mount your TV bracket. This is high enough up that it should be out of the way. And now we're just going to picture frame the inside with the shiplap on all these sides, and then finish off the rest of the face. Really simple from here. And you know, just making minor adjustments to the depth of where all this product is to make sure that we finish flush so we can add our trim boards, okay? It's really all it is, especially when you're working with twisted lumber. Make sure you use screws to build so you can make minor adjustments as you go. That'll save your butt. I'm gonna set my base plate here of my picture frame into adhesive instead of nails. That way, I have a nice finish when it's done. I don't want to have to put nails in the surface of this if I can get away with it. Same thing, I'll use adhesive on the side pieces, and then the top piece I'm going to cut a little bit long and force it in there, okay? And that'll give us a really great look. And here's an opportunity to use painter's tape. You can close that joint nice and tight, stretch the tape, tape it in place until the adhesive dries. Make sure you got good contact there. Now basically all I'm gonna do is just finish putting the surface on. Here we go. Okay guys, it is day 2. So as you can see, I did a little bit extra work. I've got some trimming done and some patching and repairing done. The secret to working with this stuff though is because this is an MDF board, that means that it's still a regular price, right? It isn't affected by the pricing wars with all the wood. So it comes pre-finished. And the entire design here is made basically so that I don't have to paint this wood. We'll call it wood for the lack of a better word. I don't have to paint the MDF, it comes pre-finished. All I've got to do is paint all of my trim work before I install it, shoot in my nail, a little touch up, and then one little bit of pass with the paint afterwards to get it all looking really good. And I don't have to do any cutting around the edges because I'm not nailing near the edges, right? That allows us to get a perfect finish real easily without having the risk of the paint overlapping onto the MDF and looking sloppy. So that's the system. Today I just got to finish closing up the other side. We've got a few tricks we're going to show you today as well. One is how to install the baseboard, okay, over top of another baseboard where they're meeting. There's a special mitering technique I'm going to show you. It's not advanced woodworking by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a DIY way to do this joint, okay? It is a painted joint, so don't get too hard on us. It's going to be a little sketchy and quick and simple, but it works really well. So I'll show you that. We're also going to staple up the electrical wire that leads to the TV. We got to make sure that that can't come loose and then come in contact with the back of the fireplace. That would be bad. And then of course, we're going to just go through a couple of details of how to do all the trim work, all right? Nice and simple. We're going to mount the TV, and then we're going to have a look. We'll get your opinion from way back what you all think about this thing. All right, so I'm just going to throw in 2 staples. And yes, I like to use my linesman pliers. It's a very flat surface here. I've seen electricians use this for years. And the reason is the hammer, it's very big. And so if you have fat fingers, then linesman pliers are real easy to manipulate. And remember, we want the wire to be held in place, but not pinched. So we're just going to throw in a couple locations to make sure that it's not going to ever drop into the fireplace. Beautiful. All right. Now, all I'm going to do is measure top, middle, and bottom. Get my measurement that I can be happy with. Because I'm using a trim that's 1.25 inches wide, I've got a lot of mercy here. So we don't want to be like a heart surgeon and get every board measured perfect. We just want to get it so that we get it in place, and we're going to have a little bit of gap on both sides. It doesn't matter. Now the secret to working with shiplap is don't mark where the line is. Mark where the top of the lap is. That's where your mark is. Okay? So what we're doing is we're just marking it upside down and backwards so that when I rip that, I can then flip it over and have this point here at the same height as this point here. Okay? I've also used my level, just a quick little torpedo. And I noticed that the wall is just a little bit of a drop. So this mark here, I'm going to actually add on my table saw an extra 1/8 of an inch as my cut line. So I've got flexibility when I come here to level and square it off. Good. Hopefully we get this right the first time. All right, so basically what I did is I just took a 1x4 and I ripped it on my table saw and sanded the exposed edge. And now I'm just going to overlap this here And the measurement is simple. The thickness of the side plus the short material is the same overall width as the other side of the board. Okay, just do a little bit of math on that and you'll find the sweet spot. All right. Now, of course, these boards come all kinds of warpage, but generally they're thin enough that you can manipulate them into something that's pretty. Since we're painting, we also have the ability to caulk and use some DAP if we need to and resurface. And the secret here is when you're nailing it, nail on an angle, because a 2-inch nail will actually stick out the backside. Okay, so if you don't want to buy another size of nail, you just got to shoot on a nice 40-degree angle or something. That'll keep it all inside the wood. And once you've nailed them together, then you can nail it into the structure. And we'll just do that again every 8 to 10 inches, depending on the wood. So this is my material that I'm using to trim. It is a 1 1/4 inch doorstop. It's also the same material I'm using against my baseboard to my flooring through the whole house. Gives me a nice little continuity here. Now that I've got the outside quarter on, which is a 3/4 material, my base is also a 3/4 material thickness. So we're gonna cut the baseboard, do that scribe technique. We're gonna show you that. And we're also gonna take our cut list out. We're gonna measure for all the rest of the trims, go upstairs and cut it all at one time. That's the secret here. Eliminate trips up and down the stairs by doing all the cut list, bring all that material down. And if you need to make any adjustments, you'll know, and you can take every little piece that needs to be cut the second time. That's how I work. I like to measure once and cut things twice. I got 20 pieces. If I cut one at a time, my legs are gonna give out before I'm finished the project. All right, let's get on with the baseboard trick. All right, guys, so I need a 22-inch piece of baseboard, right? And with all the details. So the idea is I got about a 28, 30-inch piece to start with. That gives me the flexibility to cut the detail first and then go down and actually set it in place and make the mark where I wanna cut it off, okay? I know this is simple, but we built the fireplace on a 90-degree angle, which means this joint is a 90-degree angle. And the way we do this to make this profile cut is we set the saw to 45, okay? Lock it in, cut about a 1/2 inch back, and cut the strip all the way through. Now, what that does is it reveals the profile. And all I do now is I set it here, and I'm gonna use the jigsaw to cut off the extra material. Okay. Now, if you're a carpenter out there and you just saw me do that, you're gonna go, oh, what a hack. Truth is that is 90% of the profile. I'm gonna show you right now, when I slide it in place, one little bead of caulking, which you're gonna wanna use anyway if you're painting, solves all of the detail issues, all right? So let's not get our knickers in a knot. This is not time to get worried about perfection. This is a painted wood product. If you have stained grade wood, then you're gonna wanna go out and buy yourself a better saw and a few hand tool files so that you really get the detail perfect. And you're gonna wanna cut that on about a 2-degree angle backwards, just to make sure that it's snug as a bug in a rug. But for us, hell, we're painting. Nice and easy. Perfect every time. Now you're gonna see that I'm actually a little bit high than the other baseboard. All right, that's really interesting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just make a cut mark here, okay? And I'm gonna have to rip a little bit of this off, and I'm adding trim, so that's fine. So I'll take what looks about 3/8, okay? We'll let the doorstop trim close any gap that's created by the leveling process, and that'll be looking perfect. Let's try this out. Okay, so real quick, this piece is cut nice, but if you'll notice, just cutting it square looks really horrible. In my experience, if you put a 45 on it, it's too aggressive. So this is a great place to use 22.5 degrees. Most saws have an automatic lock at that location. So just get used to the habit. Whenever you have an exposed edge, soften that edge first before you install it. Always looks better from across the room. Now, I'm also taking the opportunity here to show you another trick. When you're working and you don't want to waste your material, if it's not long enough, cut it on the saw the other direction, 45 degrees, and then you can measure from the top to this joint, okay, and set that piece of wood in. So that's what I'm gonna do. Before I go upstairs, I just need to get that measurement, and that looks to be 7 1/4, a little bit shy. So what I mean by that is I'll measure 7 1/4, make my pencil mark there, and then when I cut, I'll eat the pencil off as well. That'll fit perfect. So here's the number, right? It's the same on the other side. Because I'm right-handed, I'm going to turn the piece upside down. And I'm going to be cutting from the back side. Locks in position, really simple. Now up against a wall, it's got a nice angle. That's a lot nicer. So my 7 1/4 is coming from the top, which should have this miter joint. So I'm going to measure 7 1/4 from the tip. Here's my 7 1/4, and we want that a little bit shy, so here we go. Now I also want it cut from the back side. So I'm going to hold it this way so my hands stay away from the saw. Set my 45 and cut from the front edge going backwards. That should be a perfect overlay. You'll notice I didn't install this while I was checking the measurement. You never want to install a piece until the other corner is ready for installation. Okay, because I can go have all kinds of flexibility and finish with a caulking line, right? Oh, by the way, most saw blades out there are 1/8 of an inch thick. So when you're working like this and you have someone else working on the saw helping, you can tell them, take a blade off. That's an easy way to communicate. Or if it's just a hair, you can say, just take a half a blade. I'm using 2 nails here because it's actually under pressure to follow the contour of the ceiling. And that'll hold forever, no worries. After an hour or so, the wood kind of relaxes a little bit in its new strained position, and it gets used to it. Perfect every time. All right, guys, big fan. This is my favorite material here. It can be used in so many places, it's not even funny. And you're just wiping this in, even if there's a gap. I prefer the dry decks and gaps over caulking because this can be sanded. The caulking just always makes a mess, right? And then when this is dry, it goes white, of course. I'm just gonna fill all the nail holes, give it a light sand, a little last coat of paint, mount the TV, and then it's time for the big reveal. Let's show you what this project looks like. Yeah, the secret here is to measure from the top of the TV to where this clip has the gap. It sits right on the rail. So you know where it's gonna sit when it's finished. And then allow enough room so that you can lift the TV onto the rail, because you don't wanna have too much height at the top of the TV so we can leave room for our sound bar. I'm gonna have to pick up on Amazon later. I'm looking at 9.5 inches is a nice gap, so I'm gonna install it at 10 inches from the top so I've got room to raise it and drop it on. Doesn't get any easier than that, does it? 10 inches is right on my line. Oh, no need to make a mark. Okay. Now for this particular install, I don't have a TV that pulls out and wiggles around. It's just a simple mount. The sectional is going to sit here facing it. Sometimes life is just simple. Okay, magnet. All right. Now I intentionally made the marks with the brad nailer where my framing is. So I'm going to try to line this up. Yeah, that'll work. And even if the bracket is off center, it doesn't matter because the bracket on the TV is really close together, like 6 inches apart. Because we're using these massive lag bolts, for simplicity, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to just level this off and then mark my pre-drill. So by marking the spot first, I can actually just put the bracket away for a minute while I use my hands to get this done. Now, this is a lot easier to do. I'm using Phillips screws and it's a real pain in the butt, right? Here we go. That's as low as that one can go. We'll throw the magnet back on. So, here's my TV. My mounts are close together. I've wrapped my cable. In case you're wondering what this is, that's actually a little computer game. I've got Pac-Man and Galaga on there. Hit the thumbs up button if you've ever heard of those games. Huh? Shout out to old school. Here we go. All right.
There we go.
Crazy, eh?
That's great.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, that is one heck of a transformation from an old 1880 farmhouse to what we got sitting here. Now, this is actually a 2-year labor of love. The fireplace project, only 2 days. Not a big deal. Listen, if you like this kind of information, you want to see more project videos, let us know by hitting the like button and commenting in the comments section. As for now, I'm going to get on with my day. I have got the ability to play an amazing game. It takes me back to when I was a kid. This blast controller, it's in my Amazon store. You can check it out. I'm going to play some Galaga. And if you want to see another video that you can do while you're waiting for the price of lumber to come down, click the video over here. Got a brand new flooring product that will blow your mind how simple it is to install. Cheers to next time.